Okay, it looks like everybody is signing on. Again, thank you so much for joining us for this EverGuide webinar where you will learn a little bit more about position budgeting for beginners. I wanted to introduce Sherry Miller. She's a team lead for New World ERP support, and she has put together a great presentation for you today. I think you're going to learn a lot. And also, if I wanted to let you know that we also have subsequent presentations, and the second one, the refresher version of this class on position budgeting, is on Thursday, November 10th at 1 p.m. So I encourage you, if you come away with this knowing a fair bit, you'll get the PowerPoint deck to study again, but you also may want to sign up for the refresher class. All right, Sherry, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming to this meeting today. I'm very passionate about position budgeting, and I hope that I'm able to inspire you in the same way. Today I want to begin with showing you a quick overview of position budgeting in the actual software, and then I'm going to step back a bit, and we're going to go through some details of all the items that you need to set up in order to get position budgeting working for you. So give me just a moment while I change my screens over. So this is the software. Many of you are familiar with it. I'm currently doing this presentation on version 9.5. The color scheme I find very exciting. I like it. So I hope everyone can see it. When you do position budgeting, the ultimate goal is to use the salary information that you have already detailed on all of your employees, being able to pull in their salaries, the benefits that are employer paid, and the taxes, so you can budget. And many of you have to have it approved by council. There's reports you can generate to get it approved by council, rearrange things based on their recommendations, regroup, get it reapproved, and then you're able to promote it into the annual budget. So I'm going to focus on the position budgeting side. If you could just look at your screen for me. I'm going to go up here to Human Resources and Position Budgeting. And I'm going to jump right into where I do some calculations, because that's pretty much the most exciting thing, and I mean that sincerely. All right. My budget's already been initialized, and you can see here that I have a lot of zeros on here because I haven't worked those departments yet. My Human Resource Department, I've begun to do my calculations on. And when I come into it, my department lists out all of the employees that are assigned to that department in their workforce job. This second from the bottom right here that I'm highlighting, this is a vacant position, so nobody's actually in it. But you can see I have the capability to proceed with calculating that position for council to approve. And then I'm going to slide over here. Calculating is just as simple as going down here, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. So that's your department list. I'm going to give you a moment to let it catch up on your screen. The numbers that you place in here or that are calculated in here, you're able to report on those in this area here. So I'm going up to Human Resources, Reports, Position Control, and I have several different budgeting reports available. And right now, if you're concerned that I'm going too quickly, I'm just trying to inspire, let you see the general concept, and then we're going to break it down into smaller details. So in this situation, let me just scroll down a little bit, try that one more time. I am able to do, I'm going to do this report right here, position budget by GL distribution. And it lets me know at the top, position budgeting is very informative. It will let you know when you go to do a process if you really have not put all the criteria into the correct place when you're going to run a report. So not all positions have been promoted for this budget year. I have a couple of that I worked on them the other night. I've already generated this report. I make my selections. I'm going to just jump up here and show you my report. So in this report, if you can see my screen, and let me give you a minute to let it catch up. So this is the GL distribution report. Remember, it's position budgeting. So what you see listed here is the position number and the position description. Right, let me highlight it for you. So right here, these are the two positions in my budget that I've actually calculated out. So this is a fabulous report to be able to give the department heads, you know, and work their way up the change to whatever level of process that you guys have internally. So I hope that that gives you a rough idea of how the great results that you can obtain from the system. And the great thing is you put in a little bit of work, get it set up correctly, and then pull the information. That way you're taking advantage of things that the software can help you utilize, making your time more efficient. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move back to my PowerPoint. Give me just a moment, please. All right, so I hope everybody can see it. You should be seeing a slide that says demonstration right now. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. All right. As I stated earlier, we are going to package up the slide and make it available to everybody, and we'll notify you, you know, when it does become available. The details that you have to go through, I tell you each in each slide the steps, the path of how to get to something, and that's one of the reasons why today is going to be a high overview, and I'm not going to just keep jumping through the software. I find it more beneficial. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy. Right. One of the first things that you do is you really need to verify that the salary accounts are set up to allow position budgeting. Now, what I mean by that, you have to remember that our entire audience right now, some of you already have budgets in process, and maybe you're just new to the organization. Others have thought about using position budgeting, but have not been able to implement it yet. So when I tell you that, suggest you to set something up, maybe it's just a matter of verifying that this information is in fact set up the way that I'm presenting to you now. When you go to financial management, so right here in the slide itself, financial management, annual budget processing, budget preparation, and then budget methods, you need to verify that the salaries, so down here in my slide in the blue where it says personnel, this expense account must be enabled for position budgeting. What that means is that it's going to allow in the annual budget, I'm going to get those dollar amounts from the position budgeting setup. So I'm not going to import it from a different Excel sheet. I'm not going to hand key the numbers in. I'm actually going to select the position budgeting module to allow it to come in. All right. The next item to set up and make sure is in place are your approval levels. So we allow up to 7 levels of approval. Now these approval levels can be from the, it depends on who, let me try to say this differently. It depends on which employees are entering this information into position budgeting. So when the work is in there, who does it go to next? Who's the person that's going to look at the expenses and agree and sign off that, yep, that's the amount I want to budget for, that's what my department needs? So is it your department head? Is it your director? And that's where the levels 1 through 7 come into play. The key item in this area, and again, you see the path right up here. This is set up in maintenance, financial management, company FM settings, and then there's the annual budget level tab. So many of you probably have this already defined in your system at the moment. In my screenshot here, the position budgeting checkbox, so right down here, level 1 and level 2 both have check marks, but level 3 does not. So what I'm doing to the system is on the annual budget side, nobody running the annual budget will be able to key in salary information while the budget is at level 1 and level 2. That I am locking it down and I'm telling the annual budget side of the house that you will get these numbers from position budgeting when I have them ready for you. Now the third level in this is my final level for this example. Being my final level, I do not have position budgeting checked because I want to allow wiggle room in case there needs to be manual adjustments to the salary, to the expenses in the annual budget. So let's summarize that one more time because this is really important and really gives you the best control if you understand what I'm saying here. So in this example, level 1 and level 2 will lock down the annual budget for the numbers regarding your salaries. You are telling the annual budget that those numbers and dollar amounts are going to come from the position budget. When those numbers are approved and promoted over to the annual budget, level 3 approver will be able to make changes to the position budgeting if needed. Okay, moving on to the next item to set up. The permissions. So each of the users that are going to process position budgeting will need to have their permission set up to allow them to see this. This is, again, you're going to have this PowerPoint in your toolbox for you, and it's really one set of components. It's really just the position budgeting. You decide which user needs this permission, and you give them permissions. The key when you're assigning permissions are to make sure that the user that received the new permission logs out of the system and back in for a permission to take effect. All right, I'm going on to the next slide. The process manager. Now, process manager, that gives access to the departments. So you know that there's a layered security set up in the NWERP software. And you give the permission, you have to give access to the department so you can control who sees what departments, as well as the user-based security. The user-based security is focusing on the subledgers and the ledger payroll, and you have to assign the appropriate general ledger accounts as well as the subledger accounts for your team to be able to process. There's more detailed information. I will give you a resource at the end of this meeting today of where you can get detailed information about setting up the security. And this presentation is done. I have full security to everything. It's very common in organizations that the left hand has security, the right hand does the work. So you'll have to contact whoever handles the permissions and security within your organization. All right, so moving on to the next slide. The pay batches. So the pay batches are a key component of how the position budgeting calculates. So here I'm telling you that you actually need to go set up your pay batches for the year that you are budgeting for. Now, everything we're going over right now, I'm requesting that you get it done prior to initializing. So I'm going to live in the perfect world and say that you're going to get this all done. And when you do things out of order or you run into hiccups, that's what the call center is for. You can contact the call center and we will do our best to help you. Now, the pay batches, and they're set up in maintenance, human resources, payday setup, and pay batches. The slide that you see here, I was using AutoBuild to set up my 2018 pay batch years. So you set up, when you use AutoBuild, you set up the very first pay batch on the first pay period for that particular pay group. This example is set up for biweekly. I have my work date beginning December 24th of 2017. My end date is 1/6/2018 with a check date of 1/12/2018. I also identify which pay period number it is, and then I hit build. Once I've selected build, I will get a little pop-up that says the build is complete. Do you want to continue building? And I say okay. And that's part of the process that will set up the full year of pay batches for you. Position budgeting works off of the work date. So a moment ago, I just told you that I'm starting with a 12/24 to 1/6. Well, when I do that, I have all of my work dates available starting from 1/1, but I have to pay attention to my first pay batch and my last pay batch. So the calculation for position budgeting goes by work date. What I'm trying to communicate to you is it's very common that your first batch and your last batch of the year do not include, it's not like they go up to 12/31 and begin 1/1. A lot of times the batch overlaps the following year or the previous year. So when you enter the payroll hours in payroll, you know how you enter in, okay, well they worked 12/25, 12/26, 12/27. Those are what I consider to be a work date, and that's what position budgeting is calculating on. When you go to that department list and you calculate somebody's salary, and say they're supposed to be at $40,000, and instead they're coming in at $37,000. So the $3,000 is a couple pay periods for them. I'm going to come back and look at my pay batch setup because I'm probably missing work dates. That might be a little confusing, so hear me out. Basically, build the year out and also build the first pay batch of the following year, and you pretty much can avoid that complicated issue I just described. So make it easy on yourself. Just verify the first and last pay batch for the budget year and make it really easy. Just build the next year's pay batch. Moving on to calculation of benefits. Now, benefits are employer-paid items. And some of you that are joining the call today, some of you use benefit administration, and some of you do not. So bear with me, and I will answer about both parts of it. So benefits administration, that's the module that you are able to go to maintenance, human resources, benefits administration, benefit plan maintenance. And that's the area where you have categories and they have individual plans, and you define the amount of the plans over in the maintenance area, and then you push those plans out to the employees through open enrollment. So those of you that have benefit administration, that might sound familiar to you. Well, the key to what I just said is that the costs are defined over in the maintenance area. They're not actually defined on the employee. So when position budgeting needs to calculate, it needs to include the benefits for these employees. In order for it to include these benefits, it's important that before initializing your budget, this is part of your checklist, you go to the benefit administration plan and you create the events for the benefit year that you're going to work on. In this example, when I create an event, I'm doing my coverage start date of 1/1/2018 with a payroll start date of 12/24/2017. And then I would drill into the plan, and if I have a feeling it's going to be a 2% cost increase for our health care and our dental and our vision, I may just go ahead and put those numbers into the cost screen in order for position budgeting to calculate off that projected increase. If I don't want to do that, you can leave the costs at the level that they are in your current year, and your position budgeting will be picking up those numbers. So your takeaway on this screen is, if you use benefit administration, that in setting up for position budgeting, you need to create events for the budget year and address the costs that you are going to use as your baseline in position budgeting. Now, what else do we have? We have all sorts of good stuff. Let's take a look what our next slide has for us. All right, now this screen here is talking about the basic benefits. So I'm kind of clipping along here and reviewing with you all the different things that you need to address or set up prior to beginning your position budgeting. Now, benefits, here in the call center, we call them standalone benefits versus the benefit administration plans. So those of you that don't use benefit admin, you use regular benefits, or what we call standalone benefits. Benefits that are not part of the benefit administration plan are already going to populate into position budgeting from the employee's record. So whatever, I'm one of your employees on my human resources, workforce administration, on my payroll data tab, if you've defined certain benefits for me, when my employee record goes into position budgeting, it's automatically going to carry any active benefits for me right into my calculation. I really don't have to do anything. I'm cool there. There's another portion of it for what do you do about the positions that are empty that you need to budget for. So people have retired, they've won the lottery, and their position is available to be filled. I need to budget for that. Also, I may need to budget for a vacant position for a new position that has never been created in our organization, and we're now going to create a new one. So that's what I call a vacant position. The screenshot that you see here, this is showing you that when I initialize the budget itself, it will automatically pull in the benefits that I have defined in this certain area. And my next couple slides are going to show you where that is. So what did you learn from me so far? Benefits admin, do the create event, do the cost entry for the budget year you're going to use. Current employees that you're budgeting for, if everything's set up correctly, really nothing to do. It will just bring those numbers in automatically from their payroll data tab. And then the third item is for vacant positions. This area here that I'm talking about, so if your ears are perked up, I need everyone to focus. This is right now very focused on the vacant part. All right, so here we go. There's an item called position class. Now, position class is set up in maintenance, human resources, position class. Position class is also defined on your actual position setup. So in the maintenance area where you create all your positions, there's a field on there called position class. The position class, when completed, will fill in all this information for your position budgeting as long as you've done these steps that I'm talking about right now. So when an employee fills the position, the calculation uses what's defined at the employee level, so that's the workforce. And when it's vacant, it's going to use position class. So this is how you set up position class. You ready? When you go to the position class setup, then you will hit, if you hit new, you get to name it whatever you like. newer copy. You put the year in. Mine's already here for fiscal year 2018. Once I save it, then I'm going to select the Taxes tab, and I'm going to move over to the right any of the taxes that I want my vacant positions to calculate or budget for. After I've set that in place, I also want to select which benefits I want calculated for an empty or a vacant position. I hope that makes sense. So when you're in the area of benefits, human resources, let me say that differently, I'm sorry about that. Human resources, position budgeting, budget year maintenance, that's how this area here, the benefits and taxes, are populated because of what I did here in my classes. Okay? Next slide. Position budgeting utilizes the position defined on the employee. So all of the dollar amounts are going to come from there. You've heard me say that multiple times, so I think you get it. The key, it's a little bit of a small shot here. On each employee's jobs tab, there's two fields. There's a position field and a title field. In order for position budgeting to calculate at the level you would expect, you have to set the positions up in maintenance and then connect those actual positions to the employee. So if right now your employees are not technically in an actual position and you have that field blank, but you have them populated with the title, the first step that you're going to have to take is moving forward with setting up positions as a whole and then connecting them to each individual employee. All right. When you set up a position, the position itself also has to be budgeted. So let's take a look at that. So this screen is regarding an actual position. So this is looking at maintenance, human resources, position, and I just opened one of them up that I have here. And in the lower right-hand corner of an actual position, there's a budgeting information section. So the first area is right down here in my lower right. I've got a little box around it. It says apply to budget, and I have a few options. I can either mark a position to be budgeted, mark it to be budgeted only, or not budgeted at all. So budgeted, budgeted only, not budgeted. This gives you a lot of control for how and who you want to include in the budget itself. Make sense? All right. We're going to keep drilling into this, give you more information. Now, this is a very wordy slide, but there's some great detail in it. So I'm not going to read it to you, but I'm going to summarize it. Position budgeting is designed to work on a 1-to-1 ratio. So let me go back one. In this screen, I'm back on the position setup. So in the budgeting information in the lower right corner of the screen you're looking at right now, I have an applies to budget, which we just discussed. Right below it is an approved FTE and a requested FTE. And I have it defined with the number 1.00. My goal on that is the 1-to-1 ratio. So for every employee, they have their own unique position just for them. And by doing that, you're able to get the accurate and easy calculations in position budgeting. So the 1-to-1 ratio is the most effective. When a position is vacant but still needs to be budgeted, on the position setup, you use the position class to define the taxes and the benefits. And you'll also, in that position, define a particular salary, or hourly rate so the system will be able to calculate a baseline of an amount that you decide is appropriate. Now, seasonal employees, so things lifeguards, snowplow drivers, people that you bring in depending on what your season is, you could set up a position, perhaps as budgeted only, with a larger multiplier. The system's designed to take that, say I know I'm going to need 10 lifeguards for the summer, then I can make a position budgeted only position, set it up with an FTE of 10, give it the salary that I want, put the position class on it, and then it should multiply out to calculate for all 10 of them at once. Because that would be if they're in the same department, because it's very department driven. Let's see what else. If you do decide to do anything with positions, we also have to remember that there's a little setting in the company HR settings that you can check, and it's called require employee to be in a position to be paid. So this is in reference to the jobs tab when you have them in an actual position versus a title. So by having them in an actual position, once you have all of your employees, your whole workforce moved over to it, then if you make this selection in company HR, if they are not in a position and somebody just filled the title, they will not get a paycheck. It will be a bit of an issue. So it'll help you keep control that everybody on your team, when creating an employee, is applying the position to it and not just the title. A lot of information, but again, you're going to have the PowerPoint. Plus, it's being recorded, so you can listen to it and pause. All right, moving on. Schedules. Schedules are a big deal. So some of your employees already have schedules defined on their payroll data tab. And a lot of times that schedule is used to auto-populate in your payroll system in order for their checks to be generated. A little less work, little less repetition for entry. So you have that type of a schedule. The benefit groups actually have an area where you can set up a budget schedule. So in maintenance, human resources, employee attributes, you highlight the benefit group. So you get to the benefit group list, you highlight the benefit group, and there's a default button at the bottom. You select the default button and you'll see the screen that I have right here. This is where the budget schedule is a tab, and you can add any hours codes, the amount, how often right here. And this is really great for people that are like in a salary type of grade instead of an hourly. It's very helpful. It will pull position budgeting schedule from here. All right, so I do have some tips throughout this of what not to do, so you can read through that. Let's move on to the next slide. Still has to do with schedules and hours codes or stipends. So a lot of times if I get a cell phone stipend or a car allowance, you have a lot of different things that you might stipend for. When you add a stipend to an employee on the payroll data tab, you have to be very aware that there's a box called Include in Budget. So on my screen that you're looking at right now, it's right in the center in a red square, and that particular item is checked. So when I initialize my position budgeting, it's going to pull this stipend from that employee, and it will include it in their schedule itself, and that way it will calculate for it. So let's go back real quick. This is really important. So if I have Include in Budget here, and if this was a regular hours code, let's go back one, and what if I use the budget schedule 2, then it's going to double that hours code in position budgeting. It doesn't know that it shouldn't. It's depending on you to make the right choice. All right. All right, so you've done all your work, you've got all your hours code set up, schedules are set up, benefits are done, all the GLs are ready, permissions are granted. Now it's time to initialize the position budget itself. Now in order to do this, you would go for your main menu, you go to Human Resources, Position Budgeting, and it's called Budget Year Maintenance. So that is the screen that you're looking at right now. In this case, what you're seeing is I added the new year because I wanted to add 2018. So I hit new from the lower left, and I entered 2018. Then my start and end date are auto-populated for me, and they are done that based on the fiscal year that is defined in my company suite settings. So if you're wondering where that's coming from, it's coming from your company suite settings, the month that you defined as your fiscal year start. So I'm showing you a July to June. If you're, October to September, May to April, it would populate according to your setup. When you go to initialize, you first set up the year, and then you actually hit the update budget year. So let me go back one. So see in the background here in the lower right corner, it says Update Budget Year. So I would say OK to this item, then I would highlight it in the background like that blue, and then hit Update Budget Year. That is what initializes position budgeting. The reason I have a skull and crossbones on it is because it's a sad day when I get a call in the call center. If you hit the Update Budget Year, and you have a budget in process, it will warn you, like, are you really sure you want to do that? It's going to clear out your position budgeting. You will lose all your work, it will wipe out all your numbers, and you will be starting over. So anytime you go to the budget year maintenance field, be very, very aware of what update budget year means. Okay. So the position budgeting process, once it's completed, you've updated the budget year. Here's where I've initialized. I just described that to you. I'm going to move forward. Then what you do after it's initialized, you go to the department list, so the Human Resources Position Budgeting Department list. This is where you get to work on it. Now you'll see your departments here. To get into the department, to see the individuals, you click on the description of the department. It's from there that you can do the calculations. As I showed you at the beginning, that I could actually still calculate for a vacant position. That's what the red one is down at the bottom. And the one above it is pulling right from an employee's workforce record. So it's actually that easy. Once you drill into an employee, so you go into their department and then you select an employee by clicking on their position number, you're going to see these types of options. In here, each of the buttons are described. It gives you the ability to, add pay rates, add additional information, review what the system is calculating on, and address it in detail. So I suggest that once you start your position budgeting, focus on yourself first. You know what you should have, and learn about these buttons as you get into them. We have to move forward. When things are calculated, the system will pull the earning amount that is on the marked as the annual on the Jobs tab. So the Jobs tab, which is the lower picture, where it has the pay rate and it's got the $38,019.07, the position budgeting process for that same position calculated the earnings at the $38,020. So it rounded. I'm very comfortable. This is a good set of numbers for budgeting. And the rounding, there are rounding settings within the product that you're able to define how you want it to round. So that's really what it should be doing. So the people, once it's set up right, it's going to pull your numbers from your actual employees, which means less work for you. Okay, moving forward. Now, the position budgeting reports, we're not going to go into each of them today. The most important thing is that you know where they are. They are located in Human Resources, Reports, and then Position Control. So they have their own section. There's many reports to select from. One of the favorites is the Position Budget by GL distribution, and that's the same report I showed you earlier, where it shows the position number and what amounts are going to be hitting which GL. This is a great one to show to directors and council. It seems to be what they're looking for. Some interesting facts. We do not calculate longevity automatically within position budgeting. There are several ways to do it. Once you get going, this is a beginning webinar. So if you have longevity to do with, typically position budgeting is taught in detail at the customer site, and it's customized to how you have your setup. So the longevity is usually covered in your setup on that, or you can let the call center know if you need assistance with that. Overtime, that's a very common thing. A lot of times you need certain departments that need to calculate for overtime. So in that respect, you can create a budgeted only position and then set it up with everything that you learned earlier and have the calculation for that position automatically for each of the departments. Or you can wait until it gets to a certain level of the annual budget and enter that. Now, pay increases, the system is capable of pay increases. The takeaway I want you to get from me right now is there's 3 ways to do it. The first way I have listed here is math apply adjustment factors. And that one allows you to, say you want to process a 3% raise across the board, but you're not really sure, might be 2.5. So let's see what 3% does. If you educate on what math apply adjustment factors is, then you set it up, you apply a 3% raise, you run some reports. You can also then peel that off, and it's not actually on your position budgeting. It does not harm your actual payroll setup. And then, reapply it at maybe a 2.5 or, a 4%, and run those additional reports. You're able to supply that information to your directors, and at any point you can easily revert it back to the 100% of the regular amount that everybody is in case they decide that there's no increases. Now, the calculate mass rate and calculate step increase, listen to me carefully. When you use those, yes, they're very pretty. They are visually present on each and every employee, where the math apply adjustment factor is not visual, but it is in the calculation. The difference is once you run in position budgeting, the calculate mass rate and step, either one of those, if you want to undo it, you have to go to each employee's position in position budgeting in the department list and remove them. So bells and whistles. There are easy ways to do it, and there are other ways to do it. So read up on this after the webinar. And what do you do now, right? Where do we start? This sounds great. We want to implement. If you would like to, I'm recommending the first thing you do is go to My New World portal, customer service articles, search for best practices. You'll find a great little PowerPoint out there that was written at one of the conferences a couple years ago. Also, there's a detailed administrator guide. The details are right here in the PowerPoint. And that will help you, give you a lot of detailed information that we don't have time for today. Option 2, contact your account manager. The professional services teams typically set you up and do the trainings on this, see what they can coordinate. And if you just want to get going, jump into your test system and begin there. And I would suggest starting with your own department because you're most familiar with your own department. All right, that concludes my part of the presentation, and I believe I'm ready for the questions.
Great. Thank you, Sherry. We do have some questions here, and I'm going to take them in chronological order, so in case there's some confusion, this one is earlier in the presentation. The first question is, if you get the actual rates later in the process, can you update the benefit rates in position budgeting like we can with the standalone benefits?
Yes, you just have to recalculate.
Okay,
so.
Great. The next question, if new benefit rates and open enrollment is started in the middle of budgeting, how will this affect the budget?
If I understand correctly, can you read that to me one more time?
Sure. If new benefit rates and open enrollment is started in the middle of budgeting, how will this affect the budget?
It depends on how far you are in the budget if you wanted to recalculate. So in benefits administration, you have created the event, put in certain dollar amounts, and position budgeting was started calculating off of those. But instead, now a couple months later, we find out real amounts and we're re-enrolling everybody. It could be interesting. It could be interesting. I may have to take that one personally and away offline on that one and take a look at that. I think it works. I think it'll automatically pull if you recalculate based on that. But there's part of me, a lot of things go with the very first what's in place for the first day of that event. And so in this case of our examples, we've done 7/1 through everything. So if I initialize with a 7/1 date on my benefit admin, and then I'm going to change it to 7/2, it may or may not pull that in. But I have ways around that. I have workarounds.
Okay, great. The next question that we have is, do you have to set up position classes each year?
I'm going to say yes. I find it more efficient if you do so. I will say yes. It's more proper.
Okay.
It will pull, but sometimes it has a hiccup.
Okay, and then we have what date field in HR is used to auto-calculate pay step increases?
Read that to me one more time, please.
What date field in HR is used to auto-calculate pay step increases?
It's going to be the job event date on the employee. So if you have an employee that as of 7/1 is this rate and say in October is getting a new rate, that's going, if you have the event on the employee, then the second pay rate will come in. So it's the job event date.
Okay. The next question is, what is the difference between budgeted and budgeted only?
So budgeted is what most of your employees in workforce, so this is over in the position itself, so maintenance, human resources position, in that lower right corner, if you're using position budgeting, your entire workforce is set to budgeted positions. Budgeted only, I would probably use for like an overtime, sort of like a placeholder. So if I'm the, you know, the snowplow people, if I'm them, I might need to do overtime for them, and so I'll do a snowplow overtime, have it in that department, budgeted only. I don't want that on every employee. I just need to bank some money to get the snow out of my way. Hope that answers your question.
Okay. The next one is, if you go and create an event to try an increase of a benefit, but it changes, do you have to go and make sure you delete that event? I'm not sure I read
It's all right. It makes sense to us because that's how our software is.
Okay.
Can you read that to me one more time?
Okay. If you go and create an event to try an increase of a benefit, but it changes, do you have to go back and make sure you delete that event?
Yes, if you don't want it to calculate.
Terrific. And we have questions coming in pretty quickly right now. So let's see. If an employee is in an interim position and still retains their current position, how does position budgeting work?
It works off the primary positions. So it's going to pull in that person's primary. I'm assuming that in the jobs tab on this question that that employee would have a secondary job. If that employee is budgeted, if the secondary job is marked for budgeted, it should also calculate. So it should also budget. I hope I answered that.
The next one is, where can I find the PowerPoint for this seminar?
We're going to have it posted, and we'll notify you when it's available. I just need to do a little cleanup to it, make any corrections that maybe perhaps became apparent during the webinar. So we'll get it out to you as quickly as possible. Hopefully I can get it out there by tomorrow.
Great. We prepared the current fiscal year budget without having the requested FTE file marked. You mentioned we needed to mark that box as well as the approved FTE. Do we need to have both boxes checked?
No, it's going to go off the, I know you have the requested, but it's going to go off the approved anyway. So I believe that's a required field. So I'd be surprised that you don't have something populated in there. Please reach out to the call center on that one, please.
Okay. We had a request here. Please, please, please find a way to show both the position number and the name in all reports. Is this a request?
Yeah, like my giggle on that one. Yeah, I hear that one a lot, and so noted, so noted. I may need a little help from my friends out there and contacting your account manager. This is really important, and why. So yeah, you may need to help pressure it from the outside world.
Okay. I guess the next question is related to the previous one, which is, will you notify via email? Yes, we will let you know via email, all the people who registered for this, any materials or postings that are available, just to clarify. The next question, if a position has a certain schedule, can that be pulled over every year, and is this done in the setup, for instance, a part-time position? Do you want me to reread that?
No, I'm okay on that one. How do I say? Everything will work. It's a matter of how you have that one set up. So if that in relationship to the question, if the employee has the schedule on their payroll data tab and it is set for include in budget schedule, then it's automatically going to pull that in year after year after year. You don't have to touch it. If again, and I'm thinking in my mind on that, I'm thinking an hourly employee usually has, may have a schedule built. If you're a salary employee, it's beneficial to build it at the benefit group level. So it pulls in on the salary. A lot of times they're in a different benefit group. You just have to watch out for the doubling of it. So we can do it, there's many ways to do it right. It's a matter of which way is best for you. So it may take, that's why the test environment is so beneficial to use. So you have a lot of options. They're going to work. It's just a matter of shaking out which one fits.
Okay, and it appears this may be the last question. Can you prevent a change in the position pay grade in the workforce area?
When I get all of the pay grades that come into the budget itself, and we didn't cover that in here. So when I initialize the budget, it's going to pull the grade that's on each of the employee at the workforce level. It's going to populate the grades that live in your big grades list, the one over in maintenance, human resources, earnings maintenance grades. Those are automatically going to come in and populate the position budgeting, going from whatever it was at the day that you initialized the budget. Going forward, you're able to change the grades in the position budgeting. I think it's under human resources, position budgeting, and then there's like budget grades. If you go into the budget grades, you can change things in there, and it does not affect the grades that are in earning maintenance that are on your employees. So the two things are separated, and no harm, no foul.
Okay, and we have one more. If schedules are being doubled, what is the best way to correct this?
It's going to be your choice, and it comes back to the doubling. It might be easier to undo it off of the budget schedule inside of the benefit group. So that's maintenance, human resources, employee attributes, benefit groups. Highlight the benefit group, check and hit the defaults at the bottom, clear the tab for the budget schedule. Maybe go take that employee, you'll go to the department list, so then you go back to human resources, position budgeting, department list, go into that department, delete the employee out and add them back in and see if you get the results that you're looking for on the schedule. So it's really going to be your choice. Which way do you want to go? From the employee level or from the benefit group? Which is less work? So play with that one. Try it test.
And somebody keeps coming in, sliding in before we say goodbye. Longevity, you said you have to set up an hours code. Do you have to do that within budget position under each employee that has it?
You either have to do it it depends on how you pay it. So we have several ways of paying longevity. Some people set it up where it adjusts the rate over time. Other people set up that they get a chunk of money, every quarter or once a year. One of the ways to budget for it is to either add the hours code on each employee, because not everybody gets longevity, or if it's easier, add it to the benefit group, the item we were just talking about, the default schedule, the budget schedule over underneath the benefit group. If you add it over there, if it's the majority of your employees, put the longevity on that, and then just delete it from the number of employees in the department budget list that don't have it. So if the majority have it, do it from the benefit group area. I think that would be probably time efficient then.
Okay, terrific. Well, it looks at this time that we are going to have to wrap it up. I do see some additional questions coming in, and as I mentioned, we are going to answer all these questions in an FAQ. We will provide it to you along with a link to the recording so you can watch this again, and also with information as to where you can see the final edited PowerPoint slide deck. So we will be in touch with you soon with the answers to all your questions and these materials. Thank you so much for joining us. We will also provide the schedule of the upcoming 7 webinars that are coming along, and as I mentioned, the refresher version is Thursday, position budgeting, sorry, is November 10th. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again for joining us, Sherry. Thank you for a great job. We're very helpful.
Well, thank you, everybody, and have a great time. Position budgeting is awesome.